We are here with Lightning Round. I'm Kevin Tompkins along with Gary Haddow. We've got Matt Hicks here from his Rookie Big Board YouTube channel. You can find him on Twitter at the FF_educator. Let's get over to, like I said, the strength of our class here, wide receivers, and we'll lump tight ends here outside of Kyle Pitts here. So let's start with the tight end here. So outside of Kyle Pitts, because we know everybody and their mother's been talking about Kyle Pitts, there are other tight ends here, believe it or not. So outside of Pitts, is there any other tight end that you're really kind of honing in on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm still using the term the big three. I know Kyle Pitts is far and away, but we have Brevin Jordan and Pat Freiermuth as well. And I think those guys definitely need to be in fantasy football consideration. So Pat Freiermuth, out of Penn State, he's more your prototypical two-way tight end. He's a great blocker. He'll smash you in the mouth, but he's also got nice hands. He's got good contested catch ability, and he's by no means, a speedster, but he moves pretty quick for a guy who's 6'5", 251. So if you're looking for a guy who's more in the George Kittle mold, and I'm not saying that that's who he's going to be, but he has that ability to put his hand in the dirt, smash the guy in front of him, and go out and catch passes. But Brevin Jordan, he's more of your athletic pass catching tight end. I've been a big Brevin Jordan fan for a while. He has great athleticism. I think he's a good route runner, not a great route runner, but what tight end is. I think he's a good route runner. And he's got really nice hands. He's got really sticky hands for the tight end position. So that obviously translates well for fantasy football. So I have Pat Freiermuth right now, 20 overall on the rookie big board, and I have Brevin Jordan 25 overall. So, late second, early third round rookie picks, I think those guys justify it.
I have to ask you, over or under 1.5 tight ends taken in the first round of the NFL draft? Kevin and I have a bet on this.
I think it's just one. Yeah, I think it's just one. But I will say I have Pat Freiermuth projected as a high day two guy. And I think it's because of that versatility. He can do both. Like the spot that I want him to go to is Carolina. Early day two. Well, I guess, did they just give up? They just gave up their early second round pick, didn't they?
No, it's a 2022.
That's okay. So they still got it. It's perfect. Yeah. So, a guy who can block for Christian McCaffrey, right? Which is obviously key to that offense, but then a big target for Sam Darnold to throw to, I think it would be absolutely perfect. And, Freiermuth has been catching some balls from some pretty inaccurate quarterbacks the last couple of years at Penn State. So, he's a large target.
Yeah, and that question actually came because me and Gary have been talking about how I think Freiermuth is going to find his way into the first round to Jacksonville. I think that'd be a good pick for them. If not, they have the 33rd pick, so I think that could be a good spot for him as well. But I really like him as far as a prospect. With the kind of Jason Witten, Heath Miller comp, where that's an easy guy you can project to have a double-digit year NFL career. He's good enough in the passing game and can get up the seams, but he's a willing and by far the best blocker out of anybody in this class. So you don't really, you could project probably a good 55, 60 catch, 600 to 650, receiving yards, and he'll just carve out a nice career. He's not going to wow you with, 80. He's not going to be Travis Kelce. I mean, nobody is, but besides Travis Kelce. But yeah, a 10-year plus career. I think he could be a very solid tight end, and I think he's going to provide more real life value in fantasy, but you can get probably a bottom end tight end one production out of him, should he get into the right scenario. He's, I think he's very, very, his game is going to very, very well translate, in the NFL. And then Brevin Jordan, I liken him to kind of that Herb Smith, where I think he needs more things to go in his direction to have fantasy value, at least in the early set. We know how tight ends, how they take a longer time to develop, and how, we're still waiting for that Herb Smith. Maybe we get that this year, but Brevin Jordan, like you said, he has really nice hands. He's very athletic. I think he can be a very worthwhile tight end. And yeah, it probably is more that big three. Can maybe, people like Hunter Long, people like John Bates, it is what it is. But I think it's really just, you kind of hone in on those three.
I got to ask one question. It'll bridge us into the wide receivers. If Kyle Pitts, just from everything we know as a wide receiver, where does he rank in your wide receivers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I get a lot of flack because I like to mention when talking about Kyle Pitts, 90% chance, 95% chance he goes off the board as a tight end. But I would be shocked if he was not on 3 NFL boards right now as a wide receiver, because he has that skill set. I think it would benefit him in terms of where he ranks right now. So he ranks right now for me as 9. And he would be, he'd have a chance to get up there with my wide receiver 3. He's got the same grade right now as my wide receiver 3. So, you can make the argument for him in the top 3, but he becomes a totally different player. And I actually have a different, every position group has its own formula that I grade players on. But what Kyle Pitts excels at is his athleticism, is his hands, but he's not necessarily the most refined route runner. He wasn't asked to be. So, there's a little give and take there. I think we're better off from fantasy for him to be a tight end.
Yep. 100%. And then, let's shift over to those wide receivers. So, who is your favorite wide receiver outside of that Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, that kind of 2 pairing there?
Driving the Terrace Marshall train, man. I'm trying to, I'm really trying to push that out there. So Marshall right now, he's my wide receiver 3. He's been my wide receiver 3 for a while. I really like his ability. He's 6'3", 200. I know it's not a popular opinion. I still think he sneaks into the back end of that first round of the NFL draft. Looking at it from a draft perspective, let's look at some of the guys at the top here, man. Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith. There's no big guys in the draft. Yeah. And Terrace Marshall is that one big guy that we can have early draft capital on, 6'3", 200. And he's a field stretcher, man. He's fast. What I like about Terrace Marshall and how he translates to fantasy football is he wins in the deep third of the game. He really is effective running in a straight line, working the boundary. He also played in the slot at LSU when he was sharing the field with both Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, which was happening during that title run. And so, at that time, they put him in the slot. They put him at the outside. He dominates at the contested catch point. He burns in a straight line. He's got great hands. I think he's a crisp route runner. I don't understand what folks are not taking away and getting excited about Terrace Marshall's game, but I'm happy because I think we're going to get tremendous value. He's going in the second round of rookie drafts right now, and I'm not letting him get outside of the late first if I have one of those picks.
Yeah, he's an incredible value. I think he just kind of gets lost in the shuffle when we're talking about LSU wide receivers. We had Chase and we had Justin Jefferson, and Terrace Marshall was just kind of lying in the weeds there. But, on Twitter, I talk, a lot about T. Higgins and that AJ Green comparison. I think he compares favorably to AJ Green. I think he could maybe even stand to get a little bit more bulk on him, and he could be basically almost a carbon copy of AJ Green. And the thing is, he could play inside and outside. He played primarily inside, in 2020. And then on the flip side, 2019, he played mostly outside. So that's someone who he can, jump right into an NFL offense and has that versatility to play, tether to the line, or he can play inside the slot. He can high point. He has a great release, excellent hands. I mean, really, what's not to love? And Bateman was my wide receiver 3 for a while there, and then Terrace Marshall kind of opened my eyes up. I'll thank John Helmkamp for that, for getting me on that Terrace Marshall train. That train's not stopping anytime soon.
I love it.
I really thought you guys were going to have Bateman as your number 3. I was surprised by it. As much as Terrace Marshall is fantastic to watch, I mean, Bateman just seems like the guy that's he's just going to be ready to jump him in this first season and actually make a significant impact with everything.
So I'm actually not the biggest Rashad Bateman fan. I think I'm the only one out there that's not that excited about him. He's my wide receiver 6. You could tell he wasn't quite 6'2", 210 or whatever he was listed at by Minnesota, but he weighs in at 6'0", 190. And that just confirmed a lot of the questions that I had about him. His best feature, or what he graded out the highest for me, was contested catch. And that is a factor that I have learned over the last couple of years to nerf. I put less and less weight on it here as I've kind of refined my formula over the last couple of years. Contested catch wide receivers, that skill doesn't translate as well to the NFL when those defensive backs are much, much better. You need the ability to separate before the catch point. That's not something Bateman consistently did. So I was worried about his contested catch ability when he was 6'2", his best trait. And now he's 6'0", 190. So that for me is the biggest red flag. I don't think he's going to go as early in the NFL draft as a lot of folks think. I would be surprised. I would not be surprised, I should say, if he goes outside of the top 50 picks. Which, again, all of this is unpopular by general consensus, but I don't know. I just have more question marks than most folks. So he's my wide receiver 6. I'm not burying him, but I probably won't draft him anywhere because I'm nowhere near as high.
To say, I really do like Rashad Bateman. I think he compares favorably as far as his game in the middle of the field to a Keenan Allen, where I think he's more shifty in that. He's a really good route runner. He has really good open field ability. So I think in that he kind of favors favorably to Keenan Allen. And just like Keenan Allen, that's a guy that he tends to just get downgraded when compared to his peers. So I still think that Rashad Bateman could be a very worthwhile receiver if he goes to a spot like Tennessee. That could certainly use a second wide receiver and maybe someone that can work alongside of AJ Brown, as much as I don't want anybody to work alongside AJ Brown for selfish purposes. But I think that would be a good spot for him. And yeah, he could, maybe go as high as the end of the first into the second, where, we see a lot of value in those wide receivers in a deep class. There's going to be a lot of trade ups and a lot of maneuvering for these teams as far as getting a wide receiver, especially in day 2.
Let's ask the open-ended question, because I have a very specific player I want to ask about, but you might touch on him. So, and that's just there's the Chase, Smith, Waddle, Bateman. Those really do seem to be the big 4. The Terrace Marshall, we already talked about him, so we'll put that as a big 5. Who else is there that you're like particularly just really excited about?
Yeah, so I think what is really special about this year's class is the depth of the wide receiver position. So there's guys that I get excited about down to, 42 overall on the big board, even going a little bit deeper, to be honest. There's some other guys that excite me, but a couple guys that jump out the page for me. I love Dwayne Eskridge. I have him 21 on the rookie big board. So a mid to late second round pick, which is much higher than most folks. He's out of Western Michigan. He's 5'8", 190. So he's a little bit smaller, but he's extremely explosive. He's got great release off the line of scrimmage. He has really nice hands. He went to the Senior Bowl and really impressed. Everything I'm hearing from the NFL side is he's a top 100 pick. Some folks might not even have heard of him yet. And so he's my guy right now that I think is going to jump the most in fantasy football value after the NFL drafts, because I think a lot of folks are going to be like, who the heck is Dwayne Eskridge and why does he have second-round draft capital? And they're going to kind of pay attention a little bit. So I'm a huge Dwayne Eskridge fan. And, digging really deep, I have him 42 on the rookie big board. I like Cade Johnson out of South Dakota a ton. He's really underrated. He's 5'10", 186. So he's probably going to, live in the slot in the NFL. But I think he's really shifty. I think he's got another guy who's really good off the line of scrimmage, which that release point is a really strong thing for me. I think that translates very well to the NFL. He's got nice speed, and he could be used in a lot of different ways. So you could kind of use him as a little bit of that gadget piece at the next level, or you can line him up on the outside. And I think a creative-minded coach is going to be really excited about finding ways to put him in space. He's really good in that yards after catch ability as well. So, he's kind of your late round flyer that I've been trying to push out there.
I'll say is I'm glad I'm not in leagues with you, because that's a guy I'm going to target in the 4th or 5th round every time. Getting to watch him, I think he's a fantastic player. Another guy I really like is Amari Rodgers, a guy that, I, as a Packer fan, got to watch Randall Cobb, his entire career in Green Bay. And I think he's a guy that compares very favorably, can play all 3 positions, just someone very versatile and can be more of a gadget. And if he lands at a spot like Green Bay, where he can be that kind of, that motion, as we saw, like a Tyler Ervin, and can be, that gadgety jet motion, can, get around the edge and be that guy, and then also work in the slot. Can work outside too. I think Amari Rodgers can be, he's I believe 5'10", 205, 210-ish, but I think he's got enough space, enough size where he's not just going to be, thrown around or pushed around. I think he's got some staying power there with that size. So Amari Rodgers is somebody that I think he's just in my top 10. I think he's at wide receiver 10 in my wide receiver rankings. I think that's a guy that people will be very surprised with.
Yeah, I've got a day 2 grade on Amari Rodgers. I think the NFL loves him. The notes that I have here: reliable, consistent, underneath target. He fought his way up that Clemson depth chart, man, and it took a little bit of time. Amari Rodgers came back from a torn ACL after, not this past season, not his senior season, but his junior season. He tore his ACL in spring camp and came back and played in the fall of that year. So, he's got that competitive toughness, and I think the NFL really likes him. He's got, he's not overly athletic. He's not a straight line burner, but he is athletic and he is fast. He does everything really well. And I think he's going to be a guy who dominates over the middle of the field at the NFL level. So you're absolutely right. He's going to be volume dependent. You put him in a spot where he's splitting with 3 other guys, not fantasy relevant. You put him in Green Bay because they hate wide receivers and he's the first one they take. Oh, we got some volume there, ring the bell. We have some excitement. So, he's a guy, he's 39 right now on the big board. So that'd be wide receiver eyeballing it here, 13, 14. But I like him a lot. The depth of this class is ridiculous.
So I want to ask about Kadarius Toney. This dude, I feel like this guy is going to go in the first for sure, solely because some GM and some owner are going to watch these highlights and be like, have you fucking seen this guy? Look what this guy does. I can't help but I watch, especially his highlights, and I'm just like this dude is like a Deebo Samuel, just get him the ball and let's just see what he does. And all of a sudden he's out of a scrum. So, dude, lay it on me. Where are you at with Toney?
Yeah, so Toney, man, he's so interesting. So he's 28 right now on the rookie big board. He's wide receiver 11. And I have, so one thing I'll point out is when I do my draft capital projections and I factor that in there, he's what I have bucketed as day 1 late to day 2 mid. So that's picks 20 to 50, because kind of a common misconception when it comes to the draft is that everybody in round 1 is a first round talent. And that's really not true. Most years, what the NFL calls, first rounders is they're 16 to 20 guys. So if Kadarius Toney goes 25 in draft capital terms, that's the same thing as 40 for me for the most part. Yeah. But when it comes to Toney himself, great athlete. He's a gadget piece. And I think there is going to be an NFL team that's excited to use him as a gadget piece, but that doesn't translate to fantasy football. And for me, for him to get the volume that he's going to need, it's going to have to be manufactured at a really high level, which is something that just doesn't happen in the NFL. And it does not happen for rookies in the NFL. So although I think he could be a really good NFL player and a great contributor to your NFL offense, he's not somebody that I'm targeting at a high level for fantasy football. But, what's that, late second round? We're not going to be able to ignore early third round. We're not going to be able to ignore that draft capital at some level.
I love just how you explained it as kind of somebody you'll be excited that your team drafts, but not that your fantasy, that you want on your roster.